Welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Preview Podcast. 3 defeats in 3 mean that Sunderland have slipped out of the playoff spots as we approach the weekend, but there's obviously a huge opportunity to jump straight back into them as we welcome Norwich City to the Stadium Light this weekend. And as always, we're here to preview the game this weekend, and I'm joined as always by the excellent Chris Reeve from Talk Norwich City. Chris, how are you doing? You all right, mate?
No, I'm not all right. Don't ask me how I am. It's absolutely dreadful. We are an absolute car crash of a team at the moment. And if Sunderland don't beat us at the Stadium of Light, then you guys have got serious issues because, and I know that we'll get into this, Graham. Sorry, I'm ranty today. I'm still angry. I'm still angry because Sunderland are excellent, in my opinion. Sunderland are excellent in attacking transitions. You've got Paddy Roberts out wide. You've got Jack Clark out wide, who's the second best midfielder in the league to Gabriel Sara. And we are so bad in defensive transitions. We are awful. You only need to look at Middlesbrough's second goal at Carrow Road from Tuesday night. Stood off, gave so much space, so pedestrian, so passive, so slow, completely unstructured. As you can tell, Graham, things aren't going well.
This is always my worry, though. So you're a really good yardstick. You'll remember you got a bit of stick last year because you predicted a big win, but as did I, because you were playing well at the time. We were not. However, we had a Stoke fan last week that said everything was terrible. But when we had you and things were going well for Norwich, we ended up winning the game. When things are terrible and the opposition fan is unhappy, my listeners worry. The weird thing is, last time we spoke, we'd just been beaten 3 games in a row. We've been battered by Stoke City. Things didn't really, they haven't changed at all. Although we didn't get battered this time. We've just lost to Stoke City. We're on the back of 3 defeats in a row. Whereas you were on a really good run. This time, as you just put it out, it's not the case. What's kind of going on? You've lost 3 of your last 4.
Oh, blimey. It's a great question, a valid question, and one that would take me more than this podcast to answer in full. There's so many fires on and off the pitch at Norwich City to put out. I genuinely don't think it's reactionary based upon, perhaps 1 or 2 disappointing results. At Norwich City, there is uncertainty everywhere. There's uncertainty within the sporting director role. Stuart Webber is he's about to hand it over to Ben Napper from Arsenal, which looks like a decent enough appointment, but we're not sure. But anyway, there's uncertainty there. Delia Smith, everyone will know her. She's still at the club, still has 40%, but is now a joint majority shareholder with the Atanasio Group, who are from America. But again, there's uncertainty there of, when does that happen? Who says what? Who makes the decisions? And then you've got uncertainty at manager level because you've got David Wagner in the house, but we only gave him a 12-month rolling contract, which to me says we're not sure anyway. And then on the pitch, you've got we're missing 2 strikers, which I know Sunderland fans will understand the pain of that, in Josh Sargent and Ashley Barnes. They're major losses to us, but, doesn't excuse the way that we're playing. So I think in general, we are just in this real sloppy, sluggish. It feels like we are drifting into a very dangerous place, to be honest with you, because there's almost like this lack of accountability, or at least it seems that way. So Norwich City find themselves in a real sticky patch, dreadful run of form. We actually had a really bad run towards the end of last season, Graham. We won 1 game in 11 at the end of last season, and now I think it's 1 game in, I think it might be 7, maybe. I'm trying to look, to be honest with you. Norwich City are we're the 3rd worst at expected goals in the league. We've conceded the most goals in the league now as of Tuesday night. And Sunderland fans are proper football fans, Graham. So they'll understand this, that even away from the stats, there's the eye test, and you can see and you can observe the confidence, the body language of the players. You can look on the touchline and see what the head coach, the manager, or his coaching staff are, how they're reacting to certain situations. How do you react to adversity on the pitch? You know, do you roll your sleeves up and do you get on with it? Or do you give up because you know it's going to go the same way as all those other results? So, yeah, Norwich find themselves in a really, really difficult situation now. And I would go as far as saying, so I posted after the loss to Middlesbrough, given the previous form before that the writing was on the wall now. And that's obviously with regards to David Wagner. I think he has to win this game to save his job, to be honest with you. And I don't mean he's going to get sacked that night. I think that the board will then be like, it's definitely not right. And that might take some time to replace him, but I think the decision will be made on Saturday, should we not win against Sunderland, or maybe perhaps the following week against Blackburn. But the writing's on the wall, Graham. Like, it will be a walk in the park for you, really. I try to pride myself on seeing the positives and, you know, being optimistic. But yeah, we're in a real sorry state. And this is a brilliant opportunity for Sunderland to get themselves back up again after some disappointing performances.
I always like to look at forums before sort of I do the preview shows. And I know like Twitter and forums not always a barometer of anything really, but you get a general idea by how many threads are posted, how many people have mentioned a manager being under pressure. And I think, you know, I listened back to our last podcast, and at the time Norwich had done really well. Like Wagner had come in the January. I think we played in like I want to say it was March or something like that. We turned you over 1-0, played quite well. Luke O'Nien kissed Sorensen. And then kind of went a bit south for him. And you touched on sort of previously how you struggled towards the back end of last season. Probably after that result, you fell off a cliff a little bit. He's only been there since January. He's only had the 1-year contract. You've kind of mentioned you think this, if he loses this game, this could be curtains. How much pressure is he under from the fan base? Have most of the fan base turned?
He's under tremendous pressure from the fan base. Tremendous pressure. We've heard boos for the last 2-3 games. You know, I mean, let's discount social media. It's so emotional and reactionary anyway, so that you can't really take much sense from that. But in the stadium where it really matters, fans are really unhappy. And we heard the first chance of we want Wagner out against Middlesbrough on Tuesday night. And I'm sure the Sunderland fans that are at Stadium Light will hear that much louder when you get the result of the weekend. I think I kind of feel for David Wagner, to be fair. I was saying this on, obviously, our Talk Norwich City podcast. He is unfortunately going to be the fall guy here. And it is a cutthroat results business. I really like David Wagner as a person. We interviewed him. He's a manager that I would want to run through walls for, because of how he manages his players. His man-to-man management is brilliant, but he just can't get this squad of players ticking consistently. Keyword. We have purple patches and then we fall off cliffs. And so unfortunately for David, I do think the writing's on the wall, as I say already.
We'll dig into the last two games. You know, we lost to Stoke and we lost to Leicester. Fair enough. Leicester, Stoke's disappointing, but they were both away from home. Your last two games have been against Leeds and Middlesbrough, but they were both at home, which is where, if you've been good this season, it has been most likely at home. How did you perform in both those games? Because obviously 3-2, 2-1, and you were kind of out that Middlesbrough game long before you got the one goal back.
Yeah. Well, Middlesbrough was, I've said it already, Middlesbrough was an absolute car crash, and don't let the scoreline 2-1 deceive you. Johnny Rowe, you know, it's an absolutely exceptional finish from Johnny Rowe. I think he's almost hit it through just anger, and it's flown in the back of the net. It was a brilliant goal, but we were never, ever, ever getting anywhere near getting a draw out of that game. We were, you know, the car was broken down and there was no way it was getting started. Against Leeds, we had a really good first half, really good in terms of the scoreline. We were 2-0 up. Leeds missed 4 or 5 glorious opportunities, glorious. And that's our problem. We give away too many big chances. And luckily for us, Leeds didn't have their shooting boots on in the first half. If not, it probably would have been similar to the 6-2 Plymouth result that we had earlier on in the season. So, and then at 60 minutes against Leeds, Falk brings on some quality. I say some quality, some brilliant players, to be fair. And they just cut through us so easily. Our centre-backs are so slow. We're unstructured. We're really easy to break through. And so this is the thing for Sunderland. Like, this is why I'm so confident you'll get a result, because even if it's a bit cagey because you've had a couple of, disappointing results, I think you'll get through it, because all it takes is just a period of being compact and organised, and your gaffer will see right through Norwich City. And in the second half, it'll be very simple for Sunderland to go and get the winner. Also, as well, to give Sunderland praise, we're good friends, and we have him featuring on our channel a lot. We're good friends with Dean Ashton, of course, former Norwich City and also West Ham striker, sadly struck by injury. And he was saying that Sunderland look like one hell of a team now. When he saw them against Leicester, I think you boys were actually unlucky in that game. And that speaks huge volumes away at Leicester, because they are the best team in this league by a country mile. So, yeah, and I also want to sort of say, as an aside, I don't want Sunderland fans to listen to this and be like, oh, he's just saying that to the, plant the seed, to make it easy for him to take when, Honestly, seriously, I promise you, I normally do these previews and I'm a bit punchy and I'm a bit confident and I want to talk it into existence that we'll win. We've got no chance. If Sunderland lose, you've got massive problems.
Looking at those two games as well, we've touched on defence a bit and you've touched on some of the reasons why. You said it before, you've conceded as many goals as QPR, which is the joint highest in the league. Now, I'm looking through the defence here, and look, I live in Glasgow, so I find it quite funny that Shane Duffy's not doing too well, but in reality, he's not a bad defender. And the boy next to him, Gibson, I think is struggling for confidence, but used to be worth 20 plus million and was in the England squad once. So just why are Norwich conceding as many goals as you are?
I don't think we have a clear plan. I don't think we have a clear plan at all. And even if we do have a plan, it disseminates, it crumbles, it capitulates. And the players look so void of confidence that as soon as that first goal goes in, it's game over. There's no hope of coming back. I think you're very right to say, on paper, you'd look at Ben Gibson, very experienced defender. Same with Shane Duffy. He's played in the Premier League, albeit not a lot of games, but obviously was in that Brighton squad, was in the Fulham squad too. So, he's not a bad defender, plays internationally. Certainly, you can't call him a bad defender. The problem with both of those players is the system that David Wagner insists upon playing is we go man for man in the offensive positions. So if you go man for man in those offensive positions, what happens is that you leave a lot of spaces in that midfield line for the opposition to attack. And as soon as they get the ball, I don't think we're fit enough, which is scary because they came out saying that we were meant to be the fittest team in the league, to actually even track back. We have got two really good fullbacks in Giannoulis, albeit he gave away the goal for Middlesbrough, and Jack Stacey from Bournemouth, who have been brilliant. But those centre-backs are way too slow to play in that system. And I know that you're going to ask me about Danny Bart, and I'm happy to speak about him. I think he'll be kicking himself. Because he does deserve a shot in this team. I'm stunned that they've not changed either Ben Gibson or Shane Duffy. I think they're very, very lucky boys to keep their place in the team. But I was a massive advocate of signing Danny Bart because, of course, I know that he was your player of the season. Really well respected. Real workhorse, someone that's aggressive, that's really strong aerially, a leader, in my opinion, as well. But I think he's slow as well. And so really we've signed a player that, again, is really just another version of. And so I don't think even putting Danny Bart in will solve Norwich City's problems until we change the way we play. And we're not going to change the way we play because we've got 2 injuries up front with Ashley Barnes and Josh Sargent. And we are insistent upon going man for man in those offensive positions, which leaves those centre-backs vulnerable. Sunderland will beat us, and they will beat us comfortably.
God, I'm nervous now. You mentioned about Bartley. I thought that with Danny Bart. Look, I love Danny Bart. He was excellent for us last season, but the one time I think he really struggled was with Gyökeres because he matched him for strength, and he also dominated him for pace, like because he could gallop Gyökeres. And the few times he came up against fast strikers, that was Danny Bart's problem. Danny Bart's a leader at the back. He's kind of square head, heads everything out, leader, organises everything, perfect. But where he probably struggled, and one of the reasons I think they sort of touched on why Luke O'Nien's playing in centre half and we allowed Danny Bart to be sold was because Luke O'Nien's better bringing the ball out from the back. And he is, to be fair, he's better with the ball at his feet. Danny Bart is what you would call a centre half, a defender. That's just what he does. When he went to Norwich, because he was linked to Cardiff and I want to say someone else, when he went to Norwich, I think predominantly, a bit like Swansea, a bit like Southampton, you have this idea that you always want to play possession based or play it out from the back. You have during my lifetime anyway. Danny Bart just seemed a bit of like a clash of that. So as good as a player is, and much as I rate him, it did seem a weird signing. Is that one of the problems that the recruitment's not quite right as well?
Yes and no. I think the reason why we signed Danny Bart was because he didn't cost us anything. Number one. That's the main reason. And number 2, we desperately needed defensive reinforcements, having shipped out Andrew Bamadelli to Nottingham Forest. And so really, Danny Bart was probably the best, as you've called him, defender, that we could have got at the time. And that's with no disrespect to him, because I rate him and I want him to play. I don't think he'll solve our problems though, but I do want him to do well. But linked to your point about the recruitment at Norwich City, and let's compare it to Sunderland. Sunderland have got a young and hungry team that work and work and work down to the ground. Like that they'll be on their haunches at the end of the game because they will give it absolutely everything. Sometimes you'll lose games, sometimes you'll draw games. You'll more than likely win more than those 2 options, though, with that team. And that's what Norwich City have had in the past. You even look back to recent history, young and hungry players. Emi Buendia, Max Aarons, Jamal Lewis, Ben Godfrey, Todd Cantwell. We had a real youthful spirit about us, if you like. But what I would contradict myself with is Norwich City last season were really naive. We were just nice Norwich City. We were so easy to play against, and there was a real lack of leadership because we lost a couple of our leaders in Pookie and Timmy Krul as well. And we needed to sign experience, but unfortunately, the challenge when you sign experience is if you flog them and play them every single game, every single minute, they are more likely to get injured. And so unfortunately that's where just one of the problems at Norwich City is. I don't think the recruitment was that bad, but Norwich have to be clever because we are a self-funded, or shall I say Sky-funded football club. So we don't have an owner that can just go, right, here you go, here's 8 million for a player. That can't happen. And it's just a real saving grace for Norwich City that Johnny Rowe has broken through this season, who is an absolutely exceptional footballer and will be playing Premier League football next season without a shadow of a doubt, whether that's with Norwich City or not. And also Gabriel Sara, who's still the best midfielder in the Championship by a country mile. And without those 2 players, we would be in the relegation zone by now. And it reminds me of when Falk first took over and we had James Maddison. The squad was so average. And so it was at the end of a cycle. Sunderland fans will understand that. When you're at the end of a cycle and you have one player that gives you a bit of joy throughout the season, and that was him. And then this is what we've got now in Johnny Rowe and Sarah. So, recruitment is an issue, but it's one of maybe 50 issues that I could rant about all day long.
Talks about that soft underbelly. And now, look, sometimes Sunderland get accused of that because we are so young as a team. I think we're the youngest in the league, or joint youngest. And Yeah, you know what? Now it comes with that. You can't really avoid it. But I remember the game at Norwich. Like, look, you were overwhelming favourites at the time. I think I predicted you to win 3-1. And I believe you were on a really good run of form. And I can't remember what minute of the game it happened. And it was funny, the Onai and Sorensen situation.
Yeah.
But it felt like that was just one of our more experienced heads, being 26, 27, which is experienced these days in Sunderland, just got under your skin a little bit. And it felt quite easy to do that. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's not surprising at all. That's been just again one of many issues for Norwich City, that soft underbelly. Nice Norwich City. So we had attempted to become nasty Norwich City this season, but unfortunately Ashley Barnes has got injured, and is going to be out until, I think it's going to be late November, probably early December. And the other players that are quote unquote leaders aren't leading. They're really wimping out at the moment. They're really wimping out. So yeah, that's again one of the issues. Sunderland, honestly, I'm gonna. Sunderland fans will be like, "Oh, that bloody Chris Reeve guy, he got my hopes up." But honestly, go to the game on Saturday, bring your flip flops, get your deck chairs out. It will be comfortable, so comfortable.
One thing that does make me feel positive, and I've never feeling that positive with Sunderland, quite an optimistic guy, but naturally have to be pessimistic with Sunderland because of, well, a lot of things I've seen in my 37 years of life that would not fill in a half an hour podcast. But I'm looking at your away form, and I touched on before, you've lost the last two at home. Okay, Leeds and Middlesbrough, not bad teams. But away from home, you've won one game. That was against Huddersfield. Now, you could say, right, what teams have they played away from home, though? And I've seen Rotherham and Swansea, who have been pretty rank this season. Is there a reason Norwich are not too hot away from home?
Yeah, because we play with fear. And if we don't play with fear, then fear is injected into those players at half time. And even if it's not injected into them at half time, we will change our shape or our personnel to reflect fear, which then goes through those players and they go, "Oh, blimey, he's bringing on Danny Barr." I remember we were playing Coventry away, who are just so, I don't know how Sunderland fans feel, by the way, but I just think the league is so average. I thought the league would be better, but I think teams on the whole have been pretty turgid to average. Anyway, we were playing Cov away, and we were dreadful. We were completely pedestrian, but luckily Coventry were even worse somehow. We were 1-0 up against the run of play, Johnny Rowe, standard stuff. And then rather than going and trying to kill the game with players on the bench that could have stretched Cardiff, he brought on Danny Barr, and we went 5 at the back, and we invited Coventry on, and it was a deflected own goal in the end that meant that we drew that game, which felt like a loss. And so, yeah, away from home, we play with a tremendous amount of fear, and at home, the players know there's so much pressure that it will turn toxic if they don't get it right. So that's why we're not good at home or away.
Looking at Sunderland, look, I think in the past you'd be like, when in the League One days when I started this, which players do you fear? What do you think of Sunderland? And it was Aidan McGeady next, and that was it. Whereas, to be fair, and it's the first time I've said this in a long, long time, since Quinn and Phillips days or Roy Keane days potentially, I know Sunderland have something that a lot of clubs would want. We have a plan. We have, whether you agree with it or not, there seems to be an idea of what we're going to do. And in some ways, we're like a football manager project, like the way that we recruit and things like that. From the outside looking in, though, Chris, I know you watch like a lot of Championship football. I know you watch a lot of football. What do you make of Sunderland's A, model, and B, how it's working out so far?
I'm really, really pleased that Sunderland, that Sunderland have still got Mowbray in charge. I think he deserves patience and time. And I think it'd be very easy for Sunderland fans to make the mistake of many clubs and give it the whole, "Oh, well, we're a big club. We are a Premier League club." Well, you're not at the moment. And so I think sometimes you can almost you can attempt to run before you can walk. And I think you've had that season, obviously, up from League One last season. I was very impressed. I'm equally as impressed now with the recruitment, the way the club's being run, the style of football that you're playing, the talent that you've got in the door. And yeah, I think Sunderland are on to a winner, and I think Sunderland will be. I think Sunderland will get into the playoffs this season. I do. I think you'll get in, albeit maybe just purely because of the quality of the teams above. I'm not sure you'll win those playoffs, but I think you'll be in them again. And I think that's probably fair given the amount of money that you've spent. And again, you are still, in my humble opinion, at almost the beginning of this transition from being a League One side, because by hook or by crook, you just need to get out of that hole, right? And obviously you have to commit to signing certain players to get yourself out of that hole. And then obviously you then start from scratch, which was last season in the Championship. And now this is the season where you would really hope that you can push on. I just think, unfortunately, the quality of other teams above will mean that you won't go up. Although I would love to see Sunderland go up. I am a huge fan of Alex Pritchard. I don't think Norwich should have let him go. I think we've spoken about this on your podcast before. And to have him in your team running at defences in the Championship is great. I really respect the fact that you've stuck by and given an opportunity to Patrick Roberts. It was a bit of a gamble, I guess, you signing him on what would have been pretty decent money in League One at the time, and is now absolutely flying. His home is Sunderland, and at Norwich it didn't quite work out, but you knew there was a player in there somewhere, so I respect that. And obviously I'm really impressed with Jack Clarke as well. I think he's a hell of a player, and actually, I think, part of Sunderland's, biggest challenge that's perhaps on the horizon is, if you don't go up this season, are you going to make reinforcements, or are you going to have to sell Jack Clarke? Because I don't want to sound like a complete misery, but football fundamentally is broken, and all it takes is one Premier League team to come knocking for Jack Clarke on decent money. And there's basically nothing you can do about it. It's the same with us with Gabriel Sara. What hope in hell are we keeping him this season if we don't go up? I'd actually be surprised if he doesn't go in January at this stage. So on the whole, when I do my Talk Norwich City podcast, my co-host Jack always takes the mickey out of me because I'm constantly battering and grilling teams, and there's probably not a club in the Championship really that hasn't had some stick from me. I really dislike what's the lad, Luke 09, but he's your knob, isn't he? Right, and it reminds me of when we had Grant Holt. Yeah, when we had Grant Holt, he was our knob, right? So I get that, but apart from that, tremendous amount of respect for Sunderland as a football club. Great supporters. Was really impressed with the away. Of course, we're absolutely miles away from each other, aren't we? And so I think your away fans were fantastic at Carrow Road last season. I've no doubt they'll be brilliant again this season. So yeah, I really have nothing but respect for Sunderland, unlike most clubs in the Championship.
I was going to say, if we get into the playoffs or we win the playoffs, are you hoping it's at the expense of Ipswich? I tried my best not to mention them, but
I would absolutely love that. I would love that. I would honestly love that so much. You know what?
Try.
I might even make Sunderland my second team if that happens. I'll actually claim it. I'll put it out there publicly. Right, Sunderland are now my second team if you beat Ipswich in the playoffs.
Yeah,
although to be honest with you, I thought Leeds were going to be in second spot behind Leicester, but mate, the scum are flying. And that's what makes it even worse for Norwich. We're used to those buggers being in the depths and darknesses of the Championship or League One. So the fact that they're doing everything right, makes us even more angry.
That did cross my mind, and I thought, don't mention it. No, don't mention it. So I did well not to mention it, but I think I know where this is going. But final question is always, I don't know why I bother doing it because I never get it right, but predictions. I think I know where yours is going based on the podcast. I think we might score because of a moment of brilliance from Gabriel Sara or Johnny Rowe. So I think we'll get one. But I think this has got 3-1 written all over it. 3-0, 3-1, one of those score lines. But I wouldn't be surprised if
if it was 4 or 5-1, to be honest with you. And it really hurts me to say that, because I normally will say, oh yeah, cheeky little 1-0, da da da. No chance. No chance. Mark my words, no chance.
I'm going 1-0 late Danny Bart own goal. Just because I get things wrong anyway, so I might as well go outlandish. But
it would be really interesting to see whether they play him or not, because I can see the positives and negatives of that. Maybe play him because he knows the Sunderland boys, he knows the way they play, the way they work. But at the same time, if you play him and it goes wrong, he's done. The Norwich fans will be like, well, he's not good enough because he hasn't started yet for us, and he's against his former club, which of course everyone always plays well against their former club. So yeah, that would be interesting to see if Danny Bart starts. But also if he comes on late and we change our shape again, then we'll concede anyway. So happy hunting, Sunderland fans.
I'll take any win. But Chris, really good chatting with you as always, mate. Hope you're well. Hope you have an awful weekend. But as standard, I'm sure you feel the same way.
I will have an awful weekend, and thank you very much for this was almost a counselling session for me, and I hope that I at least hope the Sunderland fans have got some value from it.
There is £50, just transfer it straight into my bank per session.
Yeah, no problem at all.